Mic check, mic check. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and his son, Hamashiach, or some call Yahweh Yeshua, Yehoshua. We mostly know as Jesus Christ. I set this thing. I didn't mean to set it at 11:20. I was trying to just get it to start. Let me see if anybody pops in here. We may have to reset this thing. Let me see if anybody pops in. Um, because it did say something to me about. If they already out there popping fire, I gotta watch. I gotta listen out. Well, I don't know these jokers popping firecrackers or shooting out here. Shalom, 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 shalom. So we got somebody in. We got somebody in here. I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to go ahead and pay these folks, man. StreamYard just limiting what they gonna give you for free now. They are limiting this thing. But I wanted to do this short lesson. There ain't number 12 slides, y'all. Well, I ain't gonna say that because I don't know how long we gonna be here. But how much do we know about 70 AD? How much do we know? Do we is it just 70 AD happened? They destroyed the temple? Why did they destroy the temple? Why are they fighting? What led to the fighting? And then what happened after the fighting? And that's what we hear the answer today is those in betweens, because a lot of us I'm just speak for myself. I know there was a point where maybe even I know over 5 years in that all I knew was 70 AD happened, and then there was a slave trade that sent a lot of us to Africa. All right. And we got most of that from the source, the Babylon, the Timbuktu. And we're going to look into that also because we just highlighted certain portions of that book, just to prove our point, man. We highlighted that little, but we didn't read the book. We got all of these books and we see them on the videos, and man, you see the what's that? The nature knows no color line, knows no color, and Babylon, the Timbuktu, and a lot of those J.A. Roger books, and Shalom, Shalom, Hebrew Elevation, Shalom, and we read these books. We don't read these books. We just look at the video and then highlight the portion that that they showed us on the video, and we use it. And I've used that portion in there, in that Babylon and Timbuktu for many years. And a few years ago, man, I actually read the book, and it's not really saying what we think it's saying. And I think too, IUIC was a point where they invited J.A. Rogers to the house. And they not to the house, but to the camp and to the school. And for one, he believes that those Africans are Northern Kingdom that got shipped off. But there was some disagreements that they found out they had, and that's why I think Bishop Nathaniel was kind of writing his own books. Now I have to read them now too. Y'all willing? I'm gonna be purchasing his latest book next month. Y'all willing? And then we gonna delve into that. But this ain't this information just out here, man. It's a quick Google. This ain't I ain't no historian, I ain't no scholar digging through stuff, but this is stuff that's on the surface. It's easy to get to this information from the works of Josephus, Philo, and this is where a lot of the J.A. Rogers get his information from the Babylon Timbuktu. He's even gonna say it in that same page that we quote. I don't know if it's page 83, 82. But we gonna get into it. All right, it's gonna be swift. It's not gonna be that deep. What happened? Look, a historical look into what happened, and we gonna go to Babylon and Timbuktu out the gate. All right. You see here, I got it highlighted. That's the part that we read there. I didn't get the page though. But it says in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with the great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it had been estimated that over a million Jews fled into Africa. Fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery, the slave markets were full of black Jews. And that's what we needed right there. That's all we really needed. When we get that, well, we got them on the hood. They drunk. At that point, you done hit them with a knockout punch. Wait a minute, man. He said black Jews, a million Jews fled into Africa. All right. But we got to keep reading. We can't stop there. Now, you see, that's all I got highlighted. All right. To the point, the highlighter even going out some. Like, it ain't even highlighted no more. We went to that and we done pulled this tag out on the streets over at the time. And the Lord, we gonna keep reading. We're gonna read this next page over here on the other side too. This page 85. It says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even to the other end, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers, neither you or thy fathers have, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. All right, and I gotta go back and date this book, because he's going through the Deuteronomy 28 just to see, did he get this from somewhere else? This prophecy and all the residue of the prophecies contained in Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68 fell upon the black Jews after they disobeyed the laws of God. Many nations transported Jews into slavery. Many nations transported Jews into slavery, and the sons of Israel transmigrated to every continent. The Jewish philosopher Philo, about 40 BC to 40 AD, who lived in Alexandria, Egypt. And see, this is a blow to the Hellenized theory, because Philo is a Hellenized Jew. He's a Hellenized Jew. That's, it's on his book. Like, that's who Philo is. And not only is he a Hellenized Jew, but he's a historian. He's not a Hellenized Jew because he forgot his identity and He is a historian. All right. He loves Greek philosophy, and he loves all that stuff, and he kind of delves into that and kind of mixes that philosophy sometimes with the scripture. Not sometimes, he does it. I don't know if y'all remember that Sons of Thunder had this document. The brothers had this document that they wanted pre-reviewed by certain brothers in the community. That was it was on the, pretty much like, it was a form of the identity of Christ. Was he pre-incarnate, or or did he always exist, or did he come into existence when through the birth? And what was the word? That's what it was. It was, what was the word? What is the logos? And that kind of came from Philo. That kind of originated with I can't say it originated, but that's kind of as far back as it goes as Philo. He quotes a lot of Philo in that document. But I didn't peer review it because he didn't give it to me. Had he gave it to me and gave me okay, I would have reviewed it and seen where some of that stuff came from. But anyway, the Jewish philosopher Philo, about 40 BC, 40 AD, lived in Alexandria, Egypt. Also, you have to know that there were tons that lived in Alexandria, Egypt. And again, like my brother Hebrew Elevation was bringing out, man. We loved Egypt, man. We loved going back and trying to strengthen ourselves in Egypt. Philo said that 1 million Jews resided in Libya and Egypt, from the Catabasmos to the borders of Ethiopia. All right, so now we got a location. Professor A.H. Godby says that Philo leaves us doubtful about which boundaries of Ethiopia he meant. I think that Philo meant the western and southern boundaries of Ethiopia, because the prophet Zephaniah mentioned from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, daughters of my dispersed. there was a period of over 600 years between Zephaniah and Philo, and considering the new waves of immigrants coming into Africa, they had 600 years to penetrate toward all the borders of Ethiopia. E. Shorter wrote that the Hebrewism was detectable of Ethiopia. Hebrewism was detectable by its inscriptions from the Egyptian border westward across North Africa to Mauritania. A.H. Godby says Jerome 340 to 420 A.D., one of the four doctors of the church, wrote that the Jews were spread from the western extremity of Mauritania to India. Now, ancient Mauritania included part of the territory on the Atlantic Ocean, Morocco, and part of the territory on the Atlantic Ocean, Morocco. Yeah, I'm sorry, because this thing slanted. It's hard for me to read out the next verse. Just bear with me. Migrated all across the North Africa by the 2nd century. Some scholars fix the date earlier than this. All right, so they went north. They went north, then went west. All right, went north, then went west, all the way to the Atlantic. They saying, and this can give you some answers. You can have a better conversation, because people are going to. One of the things is it's hard to cross the Sahara. All right, it's almost impossible, especially back in those days, to cross the Sahara Desert. But when you have them going north and then coming across, like he says, it kind of makes more sense here. And then you got to argue. Then they got to argue with the scholars. You ain't got to go back and forth with them and say you got to argue with these. So you got to argue with Jerome. It is certain that the Jews had migrated all across North Africa by the 2nd century. Some scholars say even earlier than this. The Greek historian and geographer Strabo, 63 BC to 24 AD, said concerning the Jews of Cyrene, Libya, now these Jews already had gotten into all cities, and it's hard to find a place in the habitable earth that has not admitted this tribe of men and is not possessed by it. And it has come to pass that Egypt and Cyrene, as having the same governors, and a great many other nations imitate the way of their way of living. So not only is this map maker, this geographer is saying that, hey, man, these folks everywhere, man. These folks all over the place. But not only are they all over the place, and possessing the people, like they imitate in their ways. They're not all over the place, and then the people are changing Israel. They all over the place, and the people are imitating their ways. All right, the other people, the other nations, they're imitating their ways of living. Maintain great bodies of these Jews in a particular manner, privileged status. All right. And so they respect these Jews, and they put them in a privileged status and grow up to a greater prosperity with them, and make use of the same laws with that nation also. After all of the Parthian metropolis in North Africa, Roman power became dominant. Roman power became dominant in the Barbary states. And you need to know about the barbarians. In the Berbers. You need to know that history too. We'll talk about that another time though. Under Roman serenity and power, the Jews of Asia, North Africa, and North Africa rebelled AD 115. The Jews considered themselves numerous enough to challenge Roman authority in the east and the south. Now you have to understand this too, that they were in North Africa. And they built up enough numbers by 116 where we were saying, you know what? We can go back and take Israel back. We can go back and take it back and rebuild the temple. and this kind of get into the leads up to the Bar Kokhba revolt. Um, but we restored ourselves in that first century. We didn't just run off. Like, we were there. We still had a plan of going back and getting back what's ours. All right, but we have to understand that it ain't just over 70 AD and then we in West Africa. Okay. And that's from the Babylonian Timbuktu. All right, that was just the next page over. You can keep reading. It's a plethora of information there, and not just about Israelites, but also how how these Muslims took over also. And that's something we had to talk about too. Again, the Hasmonean dynasty. This just keeps coming up, y'all. It's gonna keep coming up until we start acknowledging this. Was a ruling dynasty in Judea and surrounding regions. And listen, I did this lesson years ago. This ain't something I just put together. But somebody left a comment that made me say, you know what, we may not even know nothing about 70 AD. And so I said, let me do something quick on 70 AD, real quick, so we can understand some things, and we're not just saying things and looking crazy. Surrounding regions, classical antiquity. 116 BCE, the dynasty ruled Judea semi-autonomously in the Seleucid Empire, and from 110 BCE, with the empire disintegrating, Judea gained further autonomy and expanded into neighboring regions: Perea, Samaria, Idumea, Galilee, and Etruria. Some modern scholars regard the Hasmonean realm as an independent Israel. Hasmonean rulers took the Greek title Basileus, which means king or emperor. Forces of the Roman Republic conquered the Hasmonean dynasty in 63 BCE and made it a client state. Herod the Great displaced the last reigning Hasmonean king ruler in 37 BCE. Okay, Herod the Great displaced the last reigning Hasmonean client ruler in 37 BC. Vassal state. What is a vassal state? All right, them becoming a client, and you can reference First Maccabees 8. Chapter 16, verse 16 through 29. It's just a state with varying degrees of independence in its internal affairs, but dominated by another state in foreign affairs and potentially wholly subject to a dominating state. And you see it in the text where Israel had certain powers domestically, but when Paul says, "Well, hey, you know what? I'm a Roman citizen." Now we talk about something else, and they don't have that authority. They don't have authority in foreign matters. And so those things got to go to Caesar, or those things got to go to a higher power, higher upper up. But just a one-on-one situation, hey man, y'all do what y'all want, man. What y'all want, who y'all want to die today, But when they got foreign, it's kind of out of the jurisdiction. This is just a map, y'all, of this we gotta, and maps are important. We gotta stop just overlooking maps. They're in your text, they're in your sword for a reason. All right. You got to start looking at those maps. And so when you're reading the text, you'll know how far Damascus is. Look at Damascus up here. You'll know how far Damascus is from Judea. You'll know where Galilee is reference to Samaria. I know it's kind of easy, but Perea, Etruria. When you see these names and see these lands, you'll know where they're speaking of. Or the Phoenician woman, Tyre and Zidon up here. Even brothers will say, even Caesarea. You see Caesarea at the edge here of Samaria. All right, at the edge of Samaria. And brothers will say, Cornelius was an Israelite because he was born in Caesarea. Caesarea is in Israel. Not really. It's in the place that we used to have that was our own, but now this is Samaria. All right, this is something a little different. All right, this is Judea. And what you'll find out is that Herod built Caesarea. That was built by Herod the Great, and he dedicated that city to Caesar. And the reason why they want that Caesarea is because it's a port city. It's a port city. It has a long. If you do some research, I say, just put it in Google and hit the images. You'll see it has a long port that extends way out into the river. It's a marvel. that extended way out into America. Most of it's in the water, but um, it was a major port city, and they want that to get their money, come in, get their taxes, get back up the road, come in, get their goods, etc. All right, very important to have those ports on lock. Just like Alexandria, Egypt. It's named after Alexander. Now there's millions of Jews there, but it's named after Alexander. It's like Philo was saying, and it was but they're controlling that, and it's Egypt. You know what I'm saying? But they're controlling. They built the city in Egypt. That's on the port, so they can get their money in and out and get where they need to go. Samaritan history. Again, it's kind of linked up with the club, but we had to keep going. So some of this stuff will stick, and you start questioning things. I'm not here to give you the answers. I'm just here to make you question, make you think. This is from the Holman Bible Dictionary. Place, name of mountain, city, region meaning mountain of watching, and residents thereof 42 miles north of Jerusalem. That ain't that bad. 42 miles north of Jerusalem, 9 miles northwest of Nablus. Hill. Let me see. Take me. Yeah, that's still a ways. that's a walk. That's a walk. 42 miles is a walk, but it can be done. It can definitely be done. Northwest of Nablus, a hill protrudes from the broad valley which cuts across the central highlands of Israel. There lie ruins of ancient Samaria near a small village called Sebastia. Samaria was the capital, residence, and burial place of the kings of Israel. 1 Kings 16, 23 through 28, 1 Kings 22, 37, 2 Kings 6, 24 through 30. Following the northern kingdom's fall to Assyria, 721 BC, exiles from many nations settled Samaria, Ezra 4, 9 through 10. Later, the Greeks conquered the region, 331 BC. A lot of us don't talk about that. The Greeks conquered the region in 331 BC and Hellenized the area with Greek inhabitants. So now you got the Samaritans and many nations being put in by Assyria, and then 331 Greeks come in, they conquer it, and they put in Hellenized Greeks inhabitants in the culture. Then the Hasmoneans under John Hyrcanus destroyed the city in 119 BCE. BC. After a long period without inhabitants, Samaria lived. We talked about that in last class. After a long period without inhabitants, Samaria lived again under Pompey and the Romans in 63 BC. Finally, Herod the Great obtained control of Samaria in 30 BC and made it one of the chief cities of his territory. Again, the city was resettled with people from distant places, this time mercenaries from Europe. Herod renamed the city Sebasti, using the Greek word for Augustus, the emperor. Again, he naming the city after the emperor. That's how he got into play. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to get favor from these emperors. So all these cities he building or rebuilt, he named them after him. Trying to show that, hey, you know what? I'm down with the play. Like, I'm all for it. I'm bowing down to the emperor. I'm whatever y'all want to do, let's do it. Talk to me. This time, I'll say when the Jews revolted in 66 AD, the Romans reconquered the city and destroyed it. The Romans later rebuilt Samaria, but the city never regained the prestige it once had. And even those that's calling themselves Samaritans today, and it's very few. I think it's like a few thousand of them. This is after all of this done went on, and then ultimately in 66 they get destroyed and then rebuilt by the Romans. Samaria is the only major city founded by Israel. The Northern Kingdom Omri by Israel, the Northern Kingdom Omri, I can't see that. The sixth king of Israel, 885, 874, purchased a hill of Samaria for his royal residence. Shechem had been the capital of the Northern Kingdom until Jeroboam relocated it at Tazah. All right. While the term Samaria was first identified by the city founded by Omri, it soon became associated with the entire region. All right, we ain't got but 3 more slides, y'all. Then we got some other stuff we got to read too, though. Associated with the entire region surrounding the city, the tribal territory of Manasseh and Ephraim. Finally, the name Samaria became synonymous with the entire northern kingdom. 1 Kings 13:32, Jeremiah 31:5. After the Assyrian conquest, Samaria began to shrink in size. By New Testament times, it became identified with the central region of Palestine, with Galilee to the north and Judea to the south. The name Samaritans originally was identified with the Israelites of the northern kingdom, 2 Kings 17:29. When the Assyrians conquered Israel and they exiled 27,290 Israelites, a remnant, all right, just a remnant. Okay, they exiled a remnant of Israel. Well, I'm sorry. They exiled 27,000 and a remnant of Israel remained in the land. Not all of them. So we can't say all of them. We can't put a hard, all of them got up out of there. All right. Because a lot of times in the captivities, they left the women and children. They didn't take everybody. Okay, they didn't take everybody. Shalom, family. Shalom. Shalom, Dookie Dollars, Torah Driven. Shalom out. They didn't take everybody. They did leave a remnant. And that's why we see, that example we have with the Northern Kingdom sister from doing Christ circumcision. Where we at? Widespread worship. Okay, when the Assyrians conquered Israel, yeah, they left a remnant. Assyrian captives from distant places also settled there. 2 Kings 17:24. This led to the intermarriage of some, though not all. Okay, still can't say all. We can't put a strong, and don't let them do that. Don't let apologists do that. Don't let nobody do that. You don't know that everybody did it, and that all is subjective sometimes. Now you got to be careful with that. Though not all, Jews with Gentiles, and to widespread worship of foreign gods. By the time the Jews returned to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple and the walls of Jerusalem, Ezra and Nehemiah refused to let the Samaritans share the experience. This is Ezra 4:1-3 and Nehemiah 4:7. We did not want them dealing it. We didn't want them touching the temple. Even though the first temple was built by heathen anyway, but we didn't want them. We talked about that in the last one too, about King Hiram, and how he supplied the supplies and the men and some of the men power to get that first temple completed. Nehemiah 4:7, it says the old antagonism between Israel and the north and to the north and Judah to the south intensified the quarrel. The Jewish inhabitants of Samaria identified Mount Gerizim as the chosen place of God and the only center of worship, calling it the navel of the earth because of a tradition that Adam sacrificed there. Their scriptures were limited to the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. Moses was regarded as the only prophet and intercessor in the final judgment. They still have the Pentateuch. They still only deal with the Pentateuch. This is going to be interesting right here, though. They also believed that 6,000 years after creation, a restorer would arise and would live on earth for 110 years. On the judgment day, the righteous would be resurrected into paradise and the wicked roasted in eternal fire. And it's fun. It's they didn't need to they didn't need nothing else, man. That goes back to the story with Lazarus and the rich man. He said, "Listen, man, all they need is Moses. If they can't get it with Moses, if Moses couldn't tell them, man, ain't nobody. They couldn't see nobody come back from the dead and tell them, man, they got enough." And evidence of that is these Samaritans, understanding that, hey, man, the wicked will roast in eternal fire. Okay. In the days of Christ, the relationship between the Jews and the Samaritans was greatly stained. You got a couple of verses there. The animosity was so great that the Jews bypassed Samaria as they traveled between Galilee and Judea. Hold on, y'all. This might have just lost his mind. Man, my bad, y'all. I ain't even seen. Then I had the darn. I had the I had the screen full screen, so I couldn't see the comments. I appreciate y'all hanging in there. Yeah, I was muted. Y'all put a one to make sure to see if y'all hear me. If y'all hear me now, that's good though. Y'all didn't hear all that crazy static. Y'all willing? Hopefully. Give me a one if y'all can hear me now. Am I froze? No, I ain't froze. All praises. All right. Let's think with the Samaritan situation. I read the last two paragraphs again. The Jewish inhabitants of Samaria identified Mount Gerizim. Well, you said I had a good point there, so I know you heard that. We read that last paragraph. In the days of Christ, the relationship between the Jews and the Samaritans were greatly stained. The animosity was so great that the Jews bypassed Samaria and they traveled between Galilee and Judea. They went in the extra distance through the barren land of Perea on the eastern side. And that's why I was saying, understanding the maps. Where's Perea at? I thought it was over here. Yeah. See, it's right here on this side. So they coming out of Galilee and they kind of cutting across here. They cutting across here and then cutting back in instead of just going straight. They doing it. Scared to death. I ain't gonna say they were scared. I ain't gonna scared. You know, it was smoke, man. They ain't even want them going through there. Con. Let me go back here. Oh no, we ain't seen that. Okay. They went an extra distance between the barren and Perea on the eastern side of Jordan to avoid going through Samaria. Yet Jesus rebuked his disciples for their hostility toward the Samaritans. You got that in Luke. Healed a Samaritan leper. Honor the Samaritan for their neighborliness. Praise the Samaritan for his gratitude. Asked for a drink from a Samaritan woman. Preached to the Samaritans. Then in Acts 1:8, Jesus challenged his disciples to witness in Samaria. Philip, a deacon, opened a mission in Samaria in Acts 8:5. All right, and I think he was using them because of the beef, because we hated the Samaritans so much. Like we conquered Edom, and converted them. But we didn't do that. We didn't do that to the Samaritans. We said they just destroyed their temple and conquered them, and until the Romans came back and gave that thing to Herod. We just didn't want nothing to do with them. We were just disdained with them. And like the book said, man, this thing has been intensifying ever since we came out of Jerusalem and tried to restart building the temple. And of course, what happened to them being that they brought them other folks into the land. Emperor Caligula. All right, you're gonna know about 70 AD. You got to know about him, even though this didn't happen, but it kind of ignited the fire a little bit. Emperor Caligula. Caligula needed to quell several riots and conspiracies in the eastern territories during his reign. Aiding him in his actions was his good friend Herod Agrippa, who became governor of the territories of Batanea and Trachonitis. I gotta tell y'all bear with me, pray for me. After Caligula became emperor in 37, the cause of tension in the east was complicated, involving the spread of Greek culture, Roman law, and the rights of Jews in the empire. Was that Caligula that kicked them out? I'm not sure if that was Caligula. I'm not even gonna say it. But we seen that who was that? Aquila and Priscilla. And when Paul meets them, they've gotten kicked out of Rome. The emperor wants all these folks. The Caesar wants all these folks kicked out of Rome. He don't want them in Rome. And this a lot of riots and stuff is going on. And even the scholars are just speculating on whether it was things it was dealing with these three things. All right. Jews wanted more rights New Roman laws and Greek culture spreading. These are three different cultures. These are three different cultures trying to co-inhabit. And everybody wants a little something else. Everybody wants a little more. Everybody pushing for a little more rights, a little more freedoms. And it's causing beef. It's causing beef. But you can research. Go and look and try to research. Why was Philo? I mean, not Philo, but why was Aquila and Priscilla kicked out of Rome? What was going on during that particular time? But we see here, even in 36 AD, there are issues going on, not just with Jews, but with all three of these powers here. Caligula did not trust the prefect of Egypt, Alus Avilius Flaccus. Flaccus had been loyal to Tiberius. Tiberius had conspired against Caligula's mother and had connections to the Egyptian separatists. Again, you got Egyptian separatists, you got all kinds of little sects and belief systems and like gangs who want certain powers. You know what I'm saying? In 38, Caligula sent Agrippa to Alexandria unannounced to check on Flaccus. According to Philo, the visit was met with jeers from the Greek population who saw Agrippa as the king of the Jews. As a result, riots broke out in the city. And Caligula responded by removing Flaccus from his position and executing him. In 39, Agrippa, is that right now? King Agrippa accused his uncle Herod Antipas, the tetrarch of Galilee and Perea, of planning a rebellion against Roman rule with the help of Parthia. And you got to know who the Parthians are. It's another people, especially when you're talking about who is Esau and what happened to Esau. You need to know who the Parthians are. The Parthians and the Arturians. But the Parthians mostly. Herod Antipas confessed and Caligula exiled him. Agrippa was rewarded with his territories. And see, this is how they was moving. We're gonna talk about that too with, no, we not. I don't think we're gonna talk about that here. But that's how Herod got into play. He was moving. I think we are gonna talk about it. He was moving in a certain way that these Romans can trust him, man. He just sent him up to Alexandria, Egypt. Go check out some things, handle some things, and come to find out somebody, the riot ended up breaking out. They had to execute somebody, and then another situation happened where this Agrippa is telling, is accusing his uncle, hey man, my uncle up here trying to take over, man. He don't feel you the emperor, man. He ain't trying to bow down. Then get him to confess, and then end up getting his land. Agrippa was rewarded his territories. Riots again erupted in Alexandria in 40 between Jews and Greeks. Jews were accused of not honoring the emperor. Disputes occurred in the city of Jamnia. Jews were angered by the erection of a clay altar and destroyed it. In response, Caligula ordered the erection of a statue of himself in the Jewish temple of Jerusalem. All right, this is where it started getting sticky. All right, he's like, nah, so y'all gonna tell that y'all finna worship me, and I'm gonna put me in the temple. I'm gonna put a huge statue of me in the temple. A demand in conflict with the Jewish monotheism. In this contrast, Philo wrote that Caligula regarded the Jews with the most especial suspicion, as if they were the only persons who cherished wishes opposed to his. All right. So he had beef. Caligula had beef with the Jews. Yeah, man, y'all gonna worship me. I'm gonna put myself in the temple. The governor of Syria, Publius Petronius, fearing civil war if the order were carried out, delayed implementing it for nearly a year. Agrippa finally convinced Caligula to reverse the order. However, Caligula issued a second order to have his statue erected in the Temple of Jerusalem. In Rome, another statue of himself of a colossal size was made of gilt brass for the purpose. However, according to Josephus, when the ship carrying the statue was still underway, news of Caligula's death reached Petronius. Thus, the statue was never installed. All right, so that was finna happen, but Moha took him up out of there. Siege of Jerusalem. We're gonna talk about that 63 BC, and then we got the Jewish-Roman War 66 through 70. Let me come out of here. Jacob during the time. King seat. When the world ends, Esau is king. Let me share this screen here. I'm gonna remove this. And we're gonna share screen. No, we're not. I didn't put that. Have to figure out. Hold on, let me see if I can do that from the slides. I can't do it from the slide. No, I can't. Let me see. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm gonna have to come back. We got to come back. I'm gonna have to sit that. We need to get there, but I'm gonna have to check. Let me see if I got it in my email. I may have it in my email. But if not, we'll put it in there real quick. And then what we'll read is we'll read these other two slides real quick, and then we'll come back to the revolt. No, we need to get that first. Hold on 1 second, y'all. Let me just send it. Let me go into the slides and then I send it to myself. Just 1 second. I'm trying to get that link there. Jewish-Roman Wars. All right, that's one there. Check my email real quick. All right, that ain't came yet. There it is. And we got that. And let me send another one real quick. Was that the same one? Jewish-Roman Wars. Okay, no. Well, yeah, that was the same. And then the siege. All right, y'all. Pull that one up. All right, we got it. Let me just share my screen here. 63. All right. Siege of Jerusalem. The siege of Jerusalem, 63 BC, occurred during Pompey the Great's campaign in the east shortly after his successful conclusion of the Third Mithridatic War. Pompey had been asked to intervene in a dispute over inheritance. Now, this is 63 BC. This is how they took the mass. This is how they got the mass. the Hasmonean. This is how they ended the Hasmonean dynasty. All right, Pompey was asked to intervene over the dispute inheritance to the throne of the Hasmonean dynasty, which turned into a war between Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II. His conquest of Jerusalem spelled the end of an independent Jewish state, and thus the incorporation of Judea as a client kingdom of the Roman Republic, and later as a province of the Roman Empire. And this came about again. We don't went over this so many, kind of beating the tree down a little bit. But this is after Alexandria Salome plunged Judea into a civil war between her two sons, Hyrcanus and Aristobulus. Like once she died, these jokers went to fighting each other on who gonna receive the inheritance. It became so problematic that Rome had to get involved. Then they chose one of the jokers, and then he kind of rebelled somehow and end up. Well, let me just we can read it right here. Watch this. The death of the Hasmonean queen Alexandria Salome plunged Judea into a civil war between her two sons. Now get this. Now she's the queen. Okay. During the Hasmonean dynasty, we had a queen that we loved. You know what I'm saying? Like she got us back to the law. And again, this is where the Pharisees and the Sadducees come in. The Sadducees wanted to be more Hellenized. The Pharisees was like, nah, man, we going back to the law. All right, so the Pharisees were really heroes before. It was one king that was sided with the Sadducees, and they brought in these Pharisees. They gathered about 80 Pharisees and sat their families in a row, and their families got to watch them die while they eat dinner. And he hung all these Pharisees while their family watched it. We Israel, man. After Aristobulus had ousted his elder brother from both the throne and the high priesthood in Jerusalem, all right, he done got his brother up out of the priesthood and the throne. Antipater, the Idumean, advised Hyrcanus to enlist the aid of King Aratus III of Nabatea. You got to know about the Nabateans too. In return for the promise of territorial concessions, Aristus provided Hyrcanus with 50,000 soldiers, and their joint forces besieged Aristobulus in Jerusalem. Again, I said my brother did the video, Hebrew Elevation did the video on how we always try to get help from these nations. We always get strength from these nations. And these two brothers were, doing their thing, going at each other. And this brother ended up getting advice from this Idumean, Antipater. And Antipater ended up going to another nation. Hey man, let me get 50,000. Then the king will give you this and this and this. And he'll give you these couple territories if you give him that, and help him kill his brother, pretty much. And again, this is how he kind of finessed his way in. Pompey had followed the successful conclusion of the Third Mithridatic War with the creation of the province of Syria, and had spent the years 64-63 BC in bringing law and order into the region. Events in Judea prompted Aemilius Saccharus, y'all bear with me, Pompey's legate in Damascus, to arrive in Jerusalem. Sarius was approached by both parties, but the issue was settled by a bribe from Aristobulus. So he came in under the rule of Pompey and said, man, what's the problem? What y'all doing? He heard both sides, but the only reason Aristobulus won because he ended up bribing him. And Sarius ordered Aristobulus to lift his siege of the city. So first, the Idumean, he helping the other brother. He helping Hyrcanus. And Sarius got bribed by the other brother. And of course, Rome, Pompey had the most weight, had the most power. He tells Aretas to lift his city, lift the siege of the city. As the Nabatean army withdrew towards Petra, Aristobulus, and that's why I said you need to know about the Nabateans, because it's dealing with Petra. All right, it's dealing with Petra. Where's Petra? Aristobulus set off in pursuit and defeated the Nabateans in Paparon. When Pompey himself arrived in Damascus in 63 BC, both Hyrcanus and Aristobulus visited him there. Pompey put off resolving the issue and informed the opposing parties he would resolve it once he arrived in Judea in person. Aristobulus did not wait for Pompey's decision and left Damascus to shut himself away in his fortress, Alexandrium. That angered Pompey, and he marched into Judea with his forces. At the sight of Aristobulus yielded. When Pompey general Aulus Gabinius led a force to take Jerusalem, however, Aristobulus' supporters refused to let the Romans in. Insists Pompey had Aristobulus arrested and prepared to besiege the city. And yeah, we keep going here with the siege and so forth. But they finally got him up out of there. All right, they finally got him up out of. But again, this is dealing with the how the Hasmonean and how Herod ended up getting into power. Because he helped him get his brother at first with the 50,000, but the brother ended up, finessing the situation, and but he was in the middle of it. And again, these Edomites were converted, so they felt that they could trust him more than they would trust the Hasmonean. So that's what started the Herodian dynasty. Okay, hold on 1 second. We're gonna get to we had the 70 AD, y'all. And I got a bonus. I got a bonus. You may not like this, but we got a bonus. Share this tab instead. Hold on. All right, the Jews' great revolt against Rome 66 CE led to one of the greatest catastrophes in Jewish life. Let me make sure y'all can see what I got up on the screen. Yeah. He said book, chapter, verse of the Queen of Israel, Queen Salome. You just seen it on the screen. Google it. Queen Salome. But there's also a ruler in the book, and there's also a ruler in the book that and her son ended up getting one of the priests had to hire her grandson. And he ended up becoming king at 12 years old or something like that. But you should be familiar with that story. And she was queen. She was queen of Israel for a while. That's I'm talking about in the Old Testament, in Kings. I did a lesson on her, but I don't forgot her name. But also, Queen Salome, her husband ended up dying, and she was ruler. She was queen, and that's why I'm saying we gotta understand her. You gotta understand that we got 100 years or over 100 years of rulership, and a lot of us have no idea about this history. You missing 400 years of history, even when you got the Apocrypha. You're missing you're missing almost 200 years. You're still missing 200 years. You got the Apocrypha and you have Judah Maccabees. That's the start of the Hasmonean dynasty. You just reading the start. And I say even that besiege of the Hasmonean dynasty, that only lasted 3 years. When we say, hey man, we couldn't keep this and we couldn't do this, it was only 3 years before we said, nah, bro, we ain't doing that. Nah, we finna fight. This wasn't something that was prolonged over centuries where we're not keeping the law. We're not doing it. It's only happened 3 years. So you can read what about Queen Salome or about the. I'm saying it's a quick Google. Uh, Athaliah. Athaliah was queen of Judea from 841 to 835, and the only female monarch to sit on David's throne in the biblical history. Athaliah was the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. And that's what I'm saying. These should be things, because these are big characters. And I got a video. You welcome, brother. Just type in Athaliah in the search bar. I got a whole video on it, and we go over the whole story. All right. But you're gonna see this in 2 Kings 11 and 2 Chronicles 23 and 22 and 33 and 23. 2 Kings 11, 2 Chronicles 22, 23. Now, when you talk about the queen of Salome, we were just here. All right, the death of the Hasmonean queen Alexandra Salome plunged Judea into a civil war between her two sons. You ain't gonna see nothing about the Hasmonean dynasty in the text. Maybe in the Apocrypha. You should live in the Apocrypha, with maybe the first 3-4 kings. Just like you ain't gonna see nothing about where the Sadducees came from and where the Pharisees came from in the text. But this is the history, according to people like Philo and Josephus. Easy. Salome Alexandra. All right. They call her the Peace of Zion. Was a regnant queen. Hold on, let me share this tab instead. All right. Peace of Zion. She ruled from 141 BC to 67 BC. No, that's how she lived. That's when she lived. I'm sorry. Was a regnant queen of Judea, one of only 3 women in Jewish historical tradition to rule over the country. The other 2 being Deborah, Athaliah, the wife of Aristobulus, Deborah and Athaliah. Just talked about Athaliah. I'm sure you know about Deborah. The wife of Aristobulus the first, and afterward Alexander Jannaeus. She was also the last ruler of Judea to die as the sovereign of an independent kingdom. Her 9-year reign has been described as the golden age of the Hasmonean dynasty. Josephus does not use the Hebrew name Shom Zion, but rather Salome, referring only to her Greek name Alexandra. Refer to her Greek name Alexandra. This is the only known Greek name among Hasmonean women. Salome's granddaughters also bore the name. Rabbinic literature, however, never uses the name Alexandra for her, instead referring to her from various Semitic names. The Dead Sea Scrolls has identified Alexandra as Shalom Zion. But it's a plethora of information here, bro. Just trust me, bro. I'm not just saying, and don't trust me. Don't trust me. Just go. It's a quick Google. Man. We ain't gotta be scared of Google. We ain't gotta feel some kind of, oh man, that's Google. Man, I ain't, I told you I ain't no darn scholar. All right, I'm just telling you the information that's out here, though. I have looked at the information that's out here, but I'm not doing no firsthand research. And I know that, come on, man. I can barely read out here, man. See, I'm out here getting tripped up on these words. But it's a plethora of information. I pray that helps you. And like I say, Athaliah, it's a good story. I don't know why I did a video this year on it. And it's dealing with, that Jezebel and, half of her family, that side of her family, that wickedness. But it's a great story. I pray that helps you, bro. Where we was at? No, were we reading the 70? Okay, yeah. We was reading 70. This led to one of the catastrophes. Share this tab instead. In retrospect, might as well have been a terrible mistake. No one could argue with the Jews for wanting to throw off Roman rule, since the Romans had first occupied Israel in 63 BCE. Their rule had grown more and more onerous. Told y'all, man, I can't. I'm getting better, but I ain't the best reader. I ain't the best researcher and all that. But this stuff is just surface level, y'all. This ain't deep research. It's a quick hit the search bar, if you want to know. But a lot of stuff we don't want to know. But are we really trying to get this thing right, or we just, But anyway, no one could argue with the Jews for wanting to throw off Roman rule since the Romans had first occupied Israel in 63 BC. Their rule had grown more onerous from almost the beginning, from the Common Era. Judea was ruled by the Roman procurators, whose chief responsibility was collect and deliver an annual tax to the empire. And that's what they wanted. They ain't caring about your domestic affairs. We just want our money, man. Render unto Caesar what is his. They're coming to collect their money. All right. That's what they cared about. Whatever the equally infuriating the Judeans. Rome took over the appointment of the high priest. How did they take over the appointment of the high priest? A turn of events with the ancient Jews appreciated as much as modern Catholics, who would have appreciated Mussolini appointing of the popes. As a result, the high priests who represented the Jews before God on their most sacred occasions increasingly came from the ranks of Jews who collaborated with the Sadducees. And making the Sadducees our high priests. At the beginning of the Common Era, a new group arose among the Jews, the Zealots, in Hebrew, Kanayim. I gotta remember that. Kanayim. These anti-Roman rebels were active for more than 6 decades and later instigated the Great Revolt. Their most basic belief was that all means were justified to obtain political and religious liberty. The Jews' anti-Roman feelings were seriously exacerbated during the reign of the half-crazed Emperor Caligula, who in the year 39 declared himself to be a deity and ordered his statue to be set up in every temple in the Roman Empire. The Jews alone in the empire refused the command that they should not defile God's temple with the statue of pagan Rome's newest deity. Caligula threatened to destroy the temple, so a delegation of Jews were sent to pacify him. To no avail, Caligula raged at them. So you are the enemies of gods, the only people who refuse to recognize my divinity. Only the emperor's sudden violent death saved the Jews from the wholesale massacre. Caligula's action radicalized even more moderate Jews. With assurance did they have, after all, that another Roman emperor would not arise and try to defile the temple or destroy Judaism altogether? In addition, Caligula's sudden demise might also have been interpreted as confirming the Zealots' belief that God would fight alongside the Jews if only they would have the courage to confront the Romans. It got me. I said this early in the lesson. I said, yeah, man, the Lord took him out. That's just enough. That's just enough to pick up your sword, man. The Lord took him out. Yeah, we might need to just go and take these jokers out, because they gonna eventually try to defile the temple. In decades after, Caligula's sudden demise might have been In the decades after Caligula's death, Jews found their religion subject to periodic gross indignities. Roman soldiers exposing themselves in the temple on one occasion and burning the Torah scroll on another. Ultimately, the combination of the financial exploitation, Rome's unbridled contempt for Judaism, and an unabashed favoritism that the Romans extended to Gentiles living in Israel brought about the revolt. In the year 66, Florus, the last Roman procurator, stole vast quantities of silver from the temple. The outraged Jewish masses rioted and wiped out the small Roman garrison stationed in Jerusalem. Cestius Gallus, the Roman ruler in the neighboring Syria, sent in a larger force of soldiers, but the Jewish insurgents routed them as well. This was the heartening victory that had a terrible consequence. Many Jews suddenly became convinced that they could defeat Rome, and the Zealots' ranks grew geometrically. Never again, however, did the Jews achieve so decisive a victory. When the Romans returned, they had 60,000 heavily armed and heavily professional troops. They launched their first attacks against the Jewish state's most radicalized area, the Galilee in the north. The Romans vanquished the Galilee and an estimated 100,000 Jews were killed or sold into slavery. Throughout the Roman conquest of this territory, the Jewish leadership in Jerusalem did almost nothing to help their beleaguered brothers. They apparently had concluded too late. Unfortunately, that revolt could not be won, and wanted to hold down the Jewish deaths as much as possible. The highly embittered refugees who succeeded in escaping the Galilean massacres fled to the last major Jewish stronghold, Jerusalem. There, they killed anyone in the Jewish leadership who was not as radical as they. Thus, all the more moderate Jewish leaders who headed the Jewish government as the revolt beginning in 66 were dead by 68. And not only died at the hands of Roman, all were killed. Oof. Wait a minute, I gotta slow down and read that. There, they killed anyone, and this is Sakari. And these are zealots, like the group Sakari. Not the camp Sakari, but they got their name from some zealots that if you wasn't with them, you was against them. And he said these folks they went to Galilee. Galilee got destroyed. Jerusalem didn't come up there and help them. They came down. Those that escaped and came down to Jerusalem, they wanted smoke. If you're not with this thing, if you scared, we gonna kill you ourselves. We ain't even gonna let you, let you get out of here. It says there they killed anyone in the Jewish leadership who was not as radical as they. Thus, all the more moderate Jewish leaders who headed the Jewish government at the revolts beginning in 66 were dead by 68. And not one died at the hands of Roman. All those leaders that started in 68, they were dead by in 66, they were dead by 68. And it says not one of them died at the hands of Rome. They were all killed by fellow Jews. The scene was now set for the revolt's final catastrophe outside Jerusalem. Roman troops prepared to besiege the city. Inside the city, the Jews were engaged in a suicidal civil war. In later generations, the rabbis hyperbolically declared that the revolt's failure and the temple's destruction in the war was due not to Roman military superiority, but to causeless hatred among the Jews. While the Romans would have won the war in any case, the Jewish civil war both hastened their victory and immensely increased the casualties. One horrendous example, in expectation of the Roman siege, Jerusalem Jews had stockpiled a supply of dry food that they could have fed the city for many years. But one of the warring zealots factions burned the entire supply, apparently hoping that destroying this security blanket would compel anyone to participate in the revolt. The starvation resulted from this mad act caused suffering as great as many the Romans inflicted. We do not know that some great figures of ancient Israel opposed the revolt. Most notably, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, since the zealot leaders ordered the execution of anyone advocating surrender to Rome. Rabbi Yochanan arranged for his disciples to smuggle him out of Jerusalem, disguised as a corpse. Once safe, he personally surrendered to the Roman general Vespasian, who granted him concessions that allowed Jewish communal life to continue. During the summer of 70, the Romans breached the walls of Jerusalem and initiated an orgy of violence and destruction. I don't know why they use those words. Shortly thereafter, they destroyed the Second Temple. This was the final and most devastating blow against Judea. It is estimated that as many as 1 million Jews died in the Great Revolt against Rome. When people today speak of almost 2,000 year span of Jewish homelessness and exile, they are dating it from the failure of the revolt and the distinction of the temple. Indeed, the Great Revolt of 66 to 70 followed from 60 years later, the Bar Kokhba Revolt, where the greatest calamities in Jewish history prior to the, I ain't gonna say the H word. In addition to more than 1 million Jews killed, these failed rebellions led to the total loss of Jewish political authority in Israel until 1948. This loss is in itself exacerbated in the magnitude of later Jewish catastrophes, since we precluded the Israel from being used as a refugee for a large number of Jews fleeing persecution elsewhere. And we also got to talk about that, them extending themselves. We talked about them going back when we was reading the Babylon and Timbuktu, where they went back north and stretched across North Africa, all the way to the Atlantic. That that they increased their numbers. After the 70 and 60 years later, you had the Bar Kokhba revolt in 130. Now we're gonna look at this here. All right, this is me asking Josephus states. Excuse me. Josephus states that Jews were captured and sent on slave ships. It says Josephus states that Jews were captured and sent on slave ships. That's what I asked y'all. I already know though. I just asked you that because I needed to find the article. I need to find where it was at. Inside of his book. It says, yes, the Jewish historian Josephus, in his work, The Jewish War, describes the capture of Jews during the Roman Jewish War and their subsequent enslavement, including transportation by ship to Egypt. Specifically, Josephus records that after the capture of Jerusalem by Titus in 70 AD, a large number of Jews were taken captive. Some were sent to Egypt for forced labor in the mines. Others were sent to the Roman provinces to be used as gladiatorial games or to be destroyed by wild animals. Excuse me. And thus, under 17 were sold as slaves. Watch what he's saying here. This fulfills a prophecy found in Deuteronomy, which states that Israelites will be brought back to Egypt with ships to be sold as slaves. Josephus' accounts provides historical evidence of this event connecting the biblical prophecy with the real world history. What says thou? Now let's read where it says this at. I just did I just needed to find the book. You can do the AI and then you can find the sources. But it's here in the War of the Jews. We'll start reading at 414. Share this tab. We'll start reading here at 414. Right there it says, and now since his soldiers were already quite tired from killing man, it's him as a accountant. What was happening during 70 AD. Josephus even have a commentary on the Old Testament and how he seen it or how they seen it back then. But it's a great work. It ain't I say you chew the meat, spit out the bones. You ain't gotta listen to nothing I'm saying. Just do your research. But this is some stuff a lot of us don't go over. You have to. I know they know. It's just we just don't go. But we need to know everything that's out here, and then we can make a decision. And now, since the soldiers were already quite tired and killing men, and yet there appear to be a vast multitude still remaining alive, Caesar gave orders that they should kill none but those that were in arms and oppose them, but should take the rest alive. But together with those whom they had orders to slay, but together with those that they had orders to slay the aged and the infirm. But for those that were in their flourishing age, and who might be useful to them, they drove them together into the temple and shut them up within the walls of the court of the women. Over which Caesar set one of his freedmen, as also Fronto, one of his own friends, which last was to determine everyone's fate according to his merits. So this Fronto slew all those that had been seditious and robbers, who were impeached one by another. But of the young men, he chose out of the tallest and the most beautiful and reserved them for the triumph. The triumph is I think they got the Ark of the Triumph or something like that, where you see that it's the cover, it's the page, it was the cover of this video. It was the thumbnail where you see them marching out with all of our items, man, and all the stuff that's outside of the temple. So Fronto slew all those seditious robbers impeached by one another, but the young man he chose the tallest and most beautiful to reserve them for the triumph. And as for the rest of the multitude that were above 17 years old, he put into bonds, and he sent them to the Egyptian mines. Titus also sent a great number of into the provinces, okay, as a present to them, that they might be destroyed upon the theaters by the sword and by the wild beast. But those that were under 17 years old, 17 years of age, were taken for slaves. Now, during the days wherein Fronto was distinguishing these men, there perished, for want of food 11,000, some of whom did not taste any food through the hatred their guards bore to them, and others would not take in any when it was given to them. The multitude also was so great that they were in want even of corn for their sustenance. So some just starved to death willingly, and then some starved to death because the guards hated them, wouldn't give them no food. Now, of the numbers of those that were carried captive during the whole war was collected to be 97,000, as was the number of those that perished during the whole siege, 1,100,000. The greater part of whom were indeed of the same nation, with the citizens of Jerusalem, but not belonging to the city itself, for they were come up from all the other country for the feast of unleavened bread, and were on the sudden shut up by an army, which at the very first occasion so great a straitness among them, that there came a pestilential destruction upon them, and so soon after such a famine as destroyed them more suddenly. And so during the feast, and y'all can look into that War of the Jews, man. I have it on Auto Bible, man. I fell asleep on that thing over 1,000 times. But I get little clips of information every now and then. But it's one you should have if you trying to get deep into this thing. I'm not trying to get that deep into it. And it could be repeated, we have to say that it has been repeated. So it just is what it is. But that's still, we have to acknowledge that, okay, well, he's saying that this happened even back then. And we glean over the and I have to talk about that because I seen a clip where this dude was saying he was Sudanese, real dark skinned people, Sudan. And he was saying that henna, that stuff that they draw on their hands, you see sisters be drawing that stuff on their hands. He was saying henna came from Sudan. And he named up a couple of other things that came from Sudan. And he said that the Arabs got it from the slave trade when they took them into captivity, and that's how they got it. But it came from Sudan, and that made me say, "Well, yeah, man, we need to do some research on the Arab slave trade, being that this started like 600 BC AD. So that's definitely something we had to look into, and it's still going, still ongoing. And that affected us also. So it affected the world, really. But it says Revelation sealed the book and Josephus didn't make it in. Well, yeah, you can do that, but you're gonna have to seal the book on Babylon and Timbuktu also. How you gonna say that Jews got here over here to Africa and got to West Africa? We can deal with just the book, but you got a lack of information with that. You know what I'm saying? So you can, as long as you stay with that methodology. You know what I'm saying? Like the brother was asking about Queen Solomon, you ain't gonna know that. You ain't gonna know that from the book because it ain't in there. You ain't gonna know about the Hasmonean dynasty. It ain't really in there. You got a couple of kings in there, but it ain't. You missing 400 years between Malachi and the New Testament. So you'll have to just stick to that. You have to stick to that methodology if that's what you're going to do. And if you come out of that, trying to prove any point that you'd like to prove, and you come out of that, then your methodology is his fail. But I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying, you just gotta, if you go that route, you gotta stick to that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Hey man, I'm just dealing with the book. I'm dealing with the book. But man, we have to understand, man. I can say something right now, and y'all definitely be like, man, that's crazy. But basically, Timbuktu lost me when he referred to the Talmud. Yeah, he's referring to the writings. Let me say something. I'm gonna say something that's gonna be very disturbing. West Africans didn't have a written language. They didn't have a written language to the Arab slave trade. That's why it's called Babylon to Timbuktu, because there wasn't no writing. Timbuktu is a place of writing and great literature in libraries. But Native Americans, they didn't have no, some of the Mayans, but that's why they called them uncivilized tribes. And you had the civilized tribes that got taken back and learned how to write and learn how to speak English. But Google and see if West Africans had a written language. They didn't write. They just spoke it. And that's why they always talk about what orally has been passed down to them. So it's we learned that from this Arab. He said they did. Show me who had the written language. Ron Dalton looking for it too. They had a written language before the Arab slave trade. He says read about the Ewe tribe. The Erie tribe had a written language. Yeah, you have to show me before the Arab slave trade. You have to show me characters that aren't influenced by the Arab slave trade, by Arabic. You said yes, a picture graphic. Because even like, a lot of the some of the tribes that make the click noise, how do you how you gonna put that how you gonna put that in a how you gonna put that in the how you gonna put that in the script? What script were you gonna put it in? And I have seen it done in the script. I have seen it, clicked into English. It was a singer, it was a woman singer that did that. But if you got if it's a pictograph and it's original, then it's original. But I haven't seen it. I had to look into it. I ain't mad at you about that. I had to look into it. The Ewe tribe, but that's one tribe out of 10,000 on West Africa. The Igbos wrote before I doubt the Igbos wrote before the slave trade. Y'all got to know even Mansa Musa. That's an Arab slave trader. That's a Muslim slave trader. And that's why I say we need to study this. We need to put some time into this. And look into this. It shouldn't be even difficult, But I know when I was researching, because I heard somebody else say it. I heard somebody else say this, and it made me upset a little bit. And I went to try to prove him wrong, and I couldn't prove him wrong. It's like everywhere I went, it ended up connected a little bit to it ended up connecting a little bit to these Arabs somehow. Um, and these Berbers, who are also Muslim. But we'll have to get in there. Is dude saying they kept their history in writing? No, I'm saying that West Africa kept their history in oral traditions. Their history was passed down orally um, from their ancestors, and that they weren't writing until that Arab slave trade. And the Arab slave trade is as early as 600. Let me see. What you send it to my you send it to my email? But yeah, I doubt the Igbos. I doubt somebody like the Igbos were. And not that I just saying it's a big clan, and I would have found that information. I want it to be untrue. I don't, That's why I told you it's gonna make you upset when I said it, because it made me upset. But uh, I posted it in here. I didn't see it. Uh, yeah, I don't know, man. It may be this free version. They ain't letting me see it. Send it to my email if you can, and I'll pull it up real quick, and then we'll get up out of here. That was the last slide, y'all, and we'll see. Shalom, brother Chris. But yeah, and it's even the Native Americans, and they that's why they call them some that were civilized and some that were uncivilized. Because people will say, well, yeah, he Christopher Columbus came over here and he had the Hebrew translator, but they're not gonna tell you that none of them they didn't speak Hebrew, and they had to take about 4 or 5 of them and take them back to Europe and teach them English so that they can come back and be translators for him. He got 4 people and went back with them to meet so they can be translators. And those 4 brought tobacco for them to plant in the smoke. And this is how Europe began smoking. We just got to tell the whole story. I've been found out that we leaving little pieces of the story off, and we not telling the whole story. And shouts out to Brother Garfield, because he bring out a lot of this stuff, man. And he don't bring out that language thing. I got that from I first heard that from what's that brother name, man? Chief X. Shouts out to Chief X. Uh Shouts out to Chris X. Who are those people that be doing the clicking noise? They are a Western tribe. But they do that. They have a clicking I start with an H. If one tribe starts with an H, Hadusu or something like that. I watch them all the time, Joker. They be on internet doing little silly stuff. I used to think it was real, but nah, they playing all of us, man. They be acting silly and acting like they ain't got no sense and all of this stuff, but um, they just do that for the views. They just do it for the views, man. Then I found out they only live to like 50 or 60. Hold on, let me check. Uh oh man, I forgot you gonna send it to me on Prince of Power. My bad. You know, oh man. I'm gonna have to send it from my phone. I don't have that Prince of Power email hooked up on the computer. Hold on. I got it. I have it. Okay, he dropped this 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna send it to my email. Okay, hold on, y'all. Share this tab instead. I'ma see. First Igbo writing was 400 AD. Okay. Okay, I'll look into that. And we'll watch this real quick. We'll try to watch a little bit of this. I don't know if my internet gonna hold up.
At the Sahara, its ancient, well, it's not ancient, its medieval name was the Sarah, and that's where we get the term Saracens from, kin of the Sarah, people of the Sarah, essentially. And how that's, amongst other terms, have been spun in modern times to mean Muslim when it never meant Muslim historically. It was just a ethnographic demarcation of a people. But yeah, Yodon, thank you for joining. Nice to meet you. Raleigh, how you doing? Hope you're well. Patrina, good to have you as always. 5,000 and I had for pyramid.
Saving money feels right. Just like when things are packed tidy and tight. Get auto insurance that fits your budget and your needs. Save up to 10% when you bundle auto and renter's insurance. Get a quote today.
You think divided by its length at the base, you get pi 3.142, almost exact, not quite exact, but almost exact. Maybe it is exact if you actually had the full size of the pyramids. Who knows? You get the alignment to Orion. Sorry, Muzzy's also mentioned there as well, the alignment to Orion. If you look through the star shaft, you can see the Orion. Well, you used to be able to. I think it's slightly out of line now because of the Earth's rotation or something like that. But you used to line up perfectly with Orion, which happens to be the constellation that some archaeologists say the three large pyramids scale to almost exactly in terms of the brightness in the sky and the size of how they look on the Giza Plateau. There's loads of different things. Sacred geometry. Sorry for those of you who have seen my video. So the point being that I and ahed about releasing that video because I don't like to just like start beefs and start wars. That wasn't my intention, but I did want to kind of like address the fact that you can't then, after taking all this time to basically rubbish, those efforts, then turn around and say, oh, I found real sacred geometry. Like what you found was, anyway, I'm not going to go into it right now. Watch the video if you want to watch it. That's kind of, it is what it is. I'm not sure how long I'm going to leave up. I might leave up. I might take it down. I don't know. I'll see. I'll see what you guys think. I'm not like it's not providing any real breakthrough insights, so I'm not in love with it. I listen to you guys, so if you guys are like, oh no, it's cool, we like it, I'll leave it. If you guys are like, then I'll see how it goes. But anyway, okay, so that's that. Thank you guys, everyone who's on. I've been rambling for half an hour now on totally out of topic, so let's jump in now because everyone's here, and let's get into the subject, which is when Africans taught the world how to write. And what is the let's actually get the slideshow up because that'll be better. Boom, where are we? Okay, so let's see. I can't remember exactly what order the slideshow is in now, but I'm going to start it and hope for the best. And it's on the wrong screen. Okay, let's try. out the who wrote first, and everyone around the world agrees Mesopotamia, Sumeria civilization came first, and they were the first to write. We have very little evidence that writing came first from Mesopotamia. Okay, very little evidence. And when I talk about evidence, I'm talking about real evidence. I'm not talking about the false evidence. And false evidence is, hey, look, we found this clay tablet, because all the Mesopotamian scripts are on clay tablets. So we found this clay tablet with these markings on it, and it dates to 3300 BC, and it's the oldest known form of writing. However, we have much older examples of the Egyptian writing system, which we know is based on pictures, that are ignored because they haven't been laid out in a certain way that it's kind of like favorable to researchers. And you're going to see why the Mesopotamian writing system isn't compatible, or should it even be a contender for an original writing system. We'll come on to that because it's missing some of the things that you expect to see. Okay, there are certain things that you expect to see when it comes to a writing system being eligible to be renowned as a kind of like an origin point for writing. They have certain characteristics. Now, I don't want to do any spoilers. I kind of want to just take you through this because I think the way that I've laid out this presentation is probably the best order to kind of take you through the information. So abjads, alphabets, abugidas, syllabaries and logo syllabaries. And actually, one of the interesting things that you've got to know is that there's only one language historically that comfortably covers all of these areas, and there's a reason why, and you're going to know that as we kind of go forward. So let's or script, I should say, not language. Let's move forward. Actually, in fact, on that note, let me ask you guys a question. Because someone tell me the difference between a script or a writing system and a language, because this is actually quite important. It doesn't matter or care whether they're consonants or vowels. It includes as much of them as possible that are needed for a specific language. Now, why is this relevant? For instance, the Greek kind of like alphabet structure that we're familiar with, the A to Z, depending on where that was being spoken, they would pick up and drop letters within it quite a lot, because there are certain sounds that were or weren't needed. So for instance, the Greek had a letter called theta, which is just basically like a circle with a cross in the middle. And I believe it was the Romans who didn't need that because it wasn't a part of their, they didn't have any words that were pronounced with that sound, so they dropped it out of their alphabet. The Etruscans dropped even more. But then the Etruscans picked up the sh sounds that were dropped way back when Phoenician was first converted into the Greek script. So not gonna go too much detail because you're gonna see what the links are between languages shortly. But the point being that alphabets will just list all of the consonants, and depending on which language is being spoken, they will pick up or drop certain. Put in the chat if you know what het means. Balls, progressed, important, and also quite difficult to draw that distinction. The American Olmec script. Those are the origination scripts because they all start with pictures. Okay, cuneiform doesn't qualify, in my opinion. It's a shorthand script. It just doesn't qualify. I don't even think it's as old as they say it is either. But anyway, that's me going on. Okay, let's just quickly stay on this cuneiform topic really quickly, because most of you will see these videos and they go out and they'll be like, oh yeah, can send directly from the Phoenician.
Where is he speaking on the Africa? Because all of those languages I'm seeing are coming from the text. You know, besides the Asians, you know, with their script. And so Egypt and Sumeria and Rome and Greek. Of course, Israel, the Moabites, they all had written languages. I'm saying they had them before, and the Arabs, Ishmael, they had them before West Africa. He brings out their symbols. Yeah. Let me see if I can find it again. I just want to see them symbols real quick.
Let's say I'm working on a research paper about the future of renewable energy, and I come across
he's doing
a
a
study with
foundational
findings
thing
I want
where
to
he's just trying to establish a
Phoenician
foundation
influence in
first.
Aramaic, which goes on to influence Hebrew, Arabic, but also we look to remember who can.
Is he saying what he's pointing at right there? Is that he said that looks like Paleo Hebrew. That looks like the olive. That looks like Paleo Hebrew there. Is that the language there? Is the Africa that he's talking about there? What he's pointing at? Yeah, that looks Paleo. Okay. Why is ancient Egypt not compared? And I've even seen. I remember a debate we used to be back in the day with this brother Pharaoh, young Pharaoh. Y'all might know him. Young Pharaoh and what the other brother's name was, General something. And they was going to debate the other commissions on has the hieroglyphics been the hieroglyphs been translated, or are they just making stuff up? But it never happened. Okay, this might be it. This, yeah, that's Chinese. Is this it here? Now, which evolved from Aramaic. Is that it?
Syllab and a syllabary. Sorry, get confused with this. Yeah, so the difference between an abugida and a syllabary
like
is
Indian.
The alphabet in an abugida will be based on syllabics and alphabets. Okay, so you get both of them. Right, you get the single alphas, but then you'll have words that kind of like combine the syllabic aspect as well. So you have symbols for syllables and symbols for standalone alphabetics.
And you said he's saying that the Paleo Hebrew was developed from African hieroglyphs, from West African hieroglyphs. I don't know. I had to do some research on it. But that's a big statement. That's a profound statement to make. A lot of people believe that the Paleo was the first. And then it's just so much you'll have to look at, man. Even the Tower of Babel and us and putting that history in there, or you making that more of a typology or more of one of those stories that give lessons, like it really didn't happen that way, or it's a lot to that. But I definitely look into it. I'm looking at the Ewe tribe. I'm gonna look into this brother here, and it was another brother said, he said the Igbos was 400. I'll look into that also. But I'm telling you, that's one of my issues with it's not one of my issues. It's one of the issues that Ron Dalton has, is that he can't find the writings. He can't find the writings of, he looking for South Africa. He looking for Bantus in their written language. He can't find them. You know what I'm saying? And that Babylon to Timbuktu. And again, we're gonna get into that history of this Arab slave trade and how they conquered the world. Will conquer the good chunk, especially the good chunk of Africa, that top half of Africa. They had that on lock. And we're gonna look into that, man, and just read some stuff. You know, that's all we gonna glean through it and just try to parse out some things, look at some things, and then come to a conclusion on it. It's from maybe earlier, ideographic system from southeastern Nigeria and Cameroon, used by eco and emerging societies and secret societies. Some source dated as far back as I have to look into it. If it's secret societies and stuff like that, it's not a, like I say, man, it's it may be tens of thousands of tribes. If we got one tribe, or even the Igbos is a big tribe, but if we got one tribe, then it's still almost non-existent. It's still almost non-existent. And then where all the writings are, that's what we'll have to look at. Where are the writings that we can glean from some history and other things? Every time I see West Africans over there and explaining their history, even those that are, those that have the same understanding as us, everything is oral. I seen one tribe talking about Gad, and it's just an oral history. Nothing's being written down. And maybe it just hadn't been excavated. Ain't no archaeology being done there. There is a lot of digging being done there. Everybody's stealing the resources. But like I said, I had to look into it. This is gonna take some studying for it. I know I couldn't find it at first. They burned our libraries, bro. What libraries? They burned the Library of Alexandria. Again, that's what I'm talking about. Alexandria, Egypt. And everybody was going to Egypt to write because they were writing on the papyrus. Before, we was writing on stones. We writing in wood. But that's why we had Sirach. When you read that little introduction to Sirach, he's saying, man, I got to go to Egypt. I got to go to Alexandria so I can write this thing out. So we can try to, produce a couple copies of this thing. And Egypt became that hub for that. And Alexandria was one of those libraries that held a lot of that information. And they burned it. They ain't burned it because they didn't want Jews to have it. They burnt it. I think it was a situation in war. And they burnt that thing down. And I don't think it was to get at us. I think it was something with the Romans. I want to say, what is it, 7-1 of the 107? I might be wrong about that, but you talking about in Timbuktu? Well, yeah. See, if we going back to Timbuktu, we dealing with Arabs. That's my thing. If you going back to Timbuktu, we dealing with the Arabs. And that's why I think he wrote the book, because that's when it was a great mass of information there. And you could definitely be right about that, about them, why they burning that library. But we also got to place them Arabs, and we say that Timbuktu, we got to place them Arabs in there in that Muslim country. Just like I said, Mansa Musa was a Muslim selling slaves. We always want to chunk him up because he was so rich and richest man probably ever to be on the earth with all the gold, but he was a Muslim slave trader. And that's early. But I say you got to get into them Berbers, a lot of that stuff, man. And I say it's a lot of information, man. I don't understand how people feel like they know everything and they so in tune, man. Like brother just brought up this language. I ain't never seen this. I have no idea what I'm looking at. So I definitely have to research it, brother. And I'll definitely look into it, because I have been saying that for a few years now. West Africans didn't speak no language, man. They couldn't write nothing. They couldn't write. They couldn't read. Couldn't read and write. They ain't had no written language. I don't know if you're familiar with it was a great conspiracy about these pews in this church in Savannah. that supposedly had Hebrew writing on it, and all them brothers, Dante Forson, Pastor Kelly Richardson, with We Woke Now, the church down there in in Douglasville, what's called the Boom Church. It's an Israelite church down there in Douglasville, Georgia, by Six Flags. They were going back and forth with them apologists, man, and man, ended up coming to find out, man, this pastor at that Boom Church sat there and lied and made up a researcher and was sending emails like he was coming from Tel Aviv, like the email was coming from Tel Aviv, saying that those letter on the pews were actually Hebrew. And Kelly Richardson and them and all of them, and I put several comments, man, like, man, just repent, brother. Don't try to keep that lie going. Matter of fact, it was him and Vocab, and then he ended up striking Vocab channel and told him, man, don't mention my name no more, threatening Vocab, and Vocab had to hearken because his channel was getting strict, getting hit, and he left him alone. But I remember, man. That was a blow. I'm like, man, how low will we go? How low will we go? You just don't know. We don't know what the scriptures in, but don't make up no professor. And these jokers tracked his email. They tracked the email. Somehow they know it came from his phone. It was like, my goodness, man. But yeah. We just gotta take our time with this thing, man. A lot of us, man, some of us didn't even graduate high school. I dropped out of I didn't drop out, man. I got kicked. Well, it was just for financial reasons why I didn't finish college. But we not no researchers like that, man. We ain't on no firsthand, doing no archaeology and all of this stuff, man. We gotta research it and read the articles and take our time with it, man. This is a lifelong process what we doing, trying to learn this text, man. It don't happen overnight, and a lot of us want it to. That's why a lot of us so fascinated with Revelations and Daniel and in the Book of Enoch, and we go straight to the meaty. We go straight to the meaty matters, and end up choking. You know what I'm saying? Because we ain't learned how to chew our food yet. We gotta take our time with this thing, man. And even with these tools, don't let these tools get us lazy. Because I've seen some research on AI too that it's like 40% or something like that. It was something like we got 40% dumber or something like that with this AI. So just be mindful of that, man. Like I said, these tools are useful and it is bringing information quick, but it could also make us stagnant and lazy and pretty much dumb. Y'all got anything else, man? I think I'll close this thing out. I'm definitely gonna look into the information. I definitely appreciate you bringing that to me. So if it does pan out, I'm going over there to Chief X, going to his video, going to his channel, and I'm gonna call him out on it. I'm gonna call him out. Ain't nobody called him out yet. I'm gonna call him out on it. But man, we pray this thing was edifying. Appreciate y'all hanging in there with me, through all the technical difficulties. I'm just gonna have to get another computer because a lot of the static stuff just comes from some static reason. Because I have another mic, but it does the same thing. So it got to be the computer and how I got this stuff connected. But pray this thing was edifying. Y'all be blessed. Shalom.